In 2017, a company that sold 1 in every 4 toys in America filed for bankruptcy. It had 1,600 stores, 64,000 employees, and a business that was still making over $11 billion a year. The world said Amazon killed it. The world was wrong. This is not a story about a retailer that lost to the internet. It is a story about a company that was profitable, dominant, and beloved, and was killed by a single financial decision. A decision made not in a toy aisle, but in a boardroom 12 years earlier. The story begins in 1948. Charles Lazarus was a veteran back from the war, and he opened a tiny baby furniture store in Washington, D.C. He had no grand plan. He simply watched what customers did, and he noticed something. Parents would buy a crib, then come back a week later asking for a toy to put in it. Lazarus followed the money. He added toys. The toys outsold the furniture 10-1. So he ripped out the cribs and filled the floor with toys. It was that simple and that ruthless. Listen to what the customer does, not what the experts say. By 1957, he opened the first Toys R Us in Rockville, Maryland. The idea was radical for its time. A huge warehouse, stacked floor to ceiling, prices marked low, and a cartoon giraffe named Jeffrey waving you in. Stack it high, sell it cheap, watch them come. Through the 70s and 80s, Toys R Us became what retail analysts call a category killer, a store so big and so cheap that it murdered the small toy shops on every main street. By the late 80s, it owned about 25% of the entire American toy market. 1 in every 4 toys sold in the United States passed through its registers. Lazarus had built a machine that printed money every Christmas. Investors loved it, kids worshipped it, competitors feared it. For a long golden moment, nobody could touch it. But the first crack came in 1998. That year, Walmart quietly overtook Toys R Us as the #1 toy seller in America. The category killer had been killed at its own game, price. The threat was real, but it was not fatal, not yet. That same year, Toys R Us launched its own website, toysrus.com, but the holiday season was a disaster. The site crashed, orders went undelivered. Children woke up on Christmas morning to empty trees. It was a humiliation, and it scarred the company's confidence in the internet for a decade. Then came the internet, and a decision that looked brilliant and turned out to be a trap. In the year 2000, Toys R Us signed a 10-year deal with a young, strange website called Amazon. Toys R Us would be Amazon's exclusive toy partner. Amazon would build and run the website. It felt like the future. Hand the hard part, the technology, to the tech company, and keep selling toys. In reality, Toys R Us had just outsourced its entire online future to the one company that would one day bury it. Within a few years, Amazon broke the deal. It let anyone and everyone sell toys on its site. Toys R Us sued. And here's the twist almost nobody remembers. Toys R Us won. In 2006, a court ruled that Amazon had breached the contract. Amazon paid a $51 million settlement. Toys R Us was finally free to build its own online empire. But it never did. And the reason it never did is the real story of this company's death. In March 2005, 3 private equity firms, KKR, Bain Capital, and Vornado Realty, bought Toys R Us for $6.6 billion. The deal was called a leveraged buyout. That one word, leveraged, is the entire key to everything that follows.
Here is how a leveraged buyout works. The buyers do not pay with their own money. They put in only $1.6 billion of equity. The other $5 billion was borrowed, and it was borrowed against Toys R Us itself. The company did not buy a rival. It was made to buy itself and then handed the bill. Overnight, a healthy, profitable business woke up $5 billion in debt. And debt is not passive. It does not sit quietly in a corner. It charges interest. Every single year for the next 12 years, Toys R Us had to pay roughly $400 million just to keep the debt alive. $400 million before a single toy was even unloaded from a truck. Hold that number in your head. $400 million a year, gone. Before a single store was renovated, before a single website was built, before a single toy was discounted to fight Walmart or Amazon. The money was already spoken for. The war chest was empty before the war began. So the stores began to rot. The lights stayed on, but the experience decayed. Shelves went unstocked, carpets went unwashed, bathrooms broke and stayed broken. The website that was supposed to rival Amazon limped along, starved of the investment it needed because there was no money left to invest. The debt had already eaten it. Imagine running a race with a boulder strapped to your back. That was Toys R Us. Every quarter, every decision, every holiday season began $400 million in the hole. Not because the stores were failing, because the balance sheet was bleeding. In 2010, the private equity owners tried to take Toys R Us public again, to cash out. They filed the paperwork, they roadshowed it to investors, but the debt was too ugly, the story too broken. By 2013, they quietly gave up and pulled the IPO. The market had looked at the books and said no. And yet here is the proof that the business itself still worked. By 2012, Toys R Us online sales hit $1.1 billion, growing nearly 30% a year. The customers wanted to buy from them on the internet. The demand was there. What was missing was the money to meet it. The debt had spent it first. And here is the most damning number in this entire story. Revenue barely changed. In 2004, the year before the buyout, Toys R Us made $11.2 billion. In 2017, the year it went bankrupt, it made $11.1 billion. The business did not collapse. The business was almost identical. The balance sheet is what collapsed. This was not a dying company. The year before the buyout, Toys R Us posted a $252 million profit. The stores worked. The brand worked. The customers came back every December. What killed it was not the market, it was the mortgage. By 2016, the numbers had become a kind of dark joke. The company earned $460 million from its actual operations, from running stores and selling toys. And it paid $429 million in interest. 93 cents of every dollar it made went straight to the debt holders. 93% of its operating profit gone. Before taxes, before investment, before the future. What was left was about $31 million to run a global toy empire with 1,600 stores. It was mathematically impossible to win. The debt had made winning illegal. The end came fast. In the holiday quarter of 2017, sales fell 7.5%. Losses quadrupled to $624 million in a single quarter. The company could not even scrape together the $200 million it needed to survive the Christmas season. The most wonderful time of the year became the end of the line.
On September 18, 2017, Toys R Us filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It was the largest retail bankruptcy in America since Kmart. And read this carefully. The company did not go bankrupt because the business had died. It went bankrupt because it could not refinance $400 million of debt. $400 million, the same number, again and again, like a curse. 6 months later, the doors closed. All 800 American stores. Liquidation sales ran through the spring of 2018. By June, every single one was shut. Roughly 30,000 workers lost their jobs in a matter of weeks. Not executives, shelf stockers, cashiers, the people in the giraffe costumes. And here is the cruelest detail of all. The private equity firms that loaded the company with debt did not leave empty-handed. Over their 12 years of ownership, KKR, Bain, and Vornado extracted $464 million in fees and interest. They placed their bet with the company's money, and when the company lost, the company paid the price. They walked away richer. Jeffrey the giraffe, the mascot who had waved at generations of children, was packed away with the rest of it. The shelves went bare, the big signs came down, the vast parking lots emptied for good. A childhood landmark, gone, not because kids stopped wanting toys, but because grown men in suits found a way to skim the future out of the register. So what really killed Toys R Us? Not Amazon. Amazon was the rival at the door, but the door was already unlocked, the lights already dimmed, the cash register already empty. The weapon was loaded years before the fatal shot was ever fired. The real killer was a balance sheet, a financial engineering trick that took a profitable, dominant, beloved business and made it too weak to fight back. Toys R Us did not lose to the future.
It was robbed of the ability to pay for it. The thing that was supposed to save the company, the buyout, became the very thing that killed it. And it is a pattern you are going to see again and again on this channel. Not the simple story of a giant cut down by a rival, the harder, stranger story of a giant that brought itself down. The rise, the fall, and the secret that sank them. That is what Paper Empire is about. The lesson is always the same. The thing that makes an empire great, its scale, its moat, its certainty, becomes the thing that traps it. For Toys R Us, the trap was debt, dressed up as a victory. A buyout celebrated as a fresh start that was really a slow 12-year bleed. If this story taught you something, subscribe. Paper Empire, the rise, the fall, and the secrets no one tells you.